People watching, she has stated she had never received a call from Big D. So she took it. That's what.
Well, that's true. That's true. She never received a call from him before, from what she told me, the day I was there with her. Why would he be calling her?
Right.
So you're right. Could she have perceived it as a threat? Of course.
Let's talk about your testimony. They kind of before you walked in, it was kind of like going back and forth from the judge to the government to the defense attorneys, saying what is he gonna say? What can he say? He can't. They were talking about he can't say that Lydia was in fear. How would he know she was in fear of her life because she had a certain phone call? Tell me about that.
Well, here's the thing. When you go to trial, and especially with the government, I guess the biggest thing in the trial was that they didn't want me to say, like you said, you brought up about her being fearful. She was fearful, and I could testify to that because I was there. It wasn't like it was hearsay. I mean, I was with her for a period of time where she was very afraid to testify, to even go to court, to even point out who the individuals were. So I knew all of this, but of course the judge gave the defense a lot of leeway on not asking certain questions because they wanted to take that away. Well, even though he was there, how would he know what her well-being was? But the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of stuff they left out that they didn't say, about the phone call she got, what made her nervous, why she was afraid. But I think everything had to come from her anyway. I don't know if they brought that out with her. I'm pretty sure they did, where they asked her if she was afraid or if she was upset, about the trial, about who the people were. Because remember, she had to identify them. And in the case, Tony Rincon, who was one of the persons that got shot along with Jay, he finally came out and testified and said who the people were that shot him and shot Jay. So remember, all those years, he never wanted to say, which I understand. He was afraid. He was scared. He lives in the neighborhood. He doesn't want to see people. And, hey, you testified against me or whatever. So I guess he felt some kind of way about it. But it was going to come out no matter what, because the U.S. attorney is going to, they'll compel you to testify. You can't lie to the government. You have to come out and talk, say what you have to say.
Yeah, for the people that weren't there at the trial, it was reported that the government asked the judge if they refuse to testify, is it okay we could treat them as hostile witnesses?
Yeah, that's always something where the defense attorney even the prosecutor will say, if they don't testify, can we treat them as hostile? They do that all the time, because if they ask you a question and you don't answer, they want to treat you as a hostile witness because it helps with their case that, boasts that this guy doesn't want to testify. Why? Because maybe he's afraid, maybe he wants to take the fifth, maybe he's scared. There's a bunch of things that come out. But that was something that the government was definitely going to ask.
Now, how do they treat a hostile witness? That word hostile, so it could be like
well, they can hold you in contempt, if you don't testify. Because remember, you when the government calls you to testify in a trial like this, you really can't lie, You can't lie to the government. So they brought that out too. And one of the most interesting things they brought out too was they said that I didn't reveal who the shooter was, or the second person was when Jay was shot. And the reason I didn't say that was because, again, I didn't know who these guys were back then. I assumed they knew, the detective and the FBI agent knew what was going on with the case. And I hadn't talked to Lydia in several years. So her safety was paramount. And it wasn't just that, it was more or less like, it has to come from her. She was the one, that would have been hearsay, because she was there.
So let's talk about that. You're referring to when they opened back when the jam chase went federal. There's I believe back in 2019, 2020, FBI agents came to see you at your home. That's what you're referring to?
And a detective, yeah.
And they kind of they brung that up where they're like, oh, how come you did not tell them it was, I believe they asked you.
Carl Jordan
and Tenard.
Well, because again, I didn't know who the detectives were at the time. And I assumed they knew because they had the case file. So they had to know all the notes and everything. And so many years had passed by. But not only that, it would have to come from Lydia as well. Right. And it wasn't like I was trying to hide anything. She had to be the one to say, hey, look, because coming from me would be hearsay. Like, okay, she told you and you're telling us. But you weren't there, because remember the defense attorney said to me during the trial, you weren't there, were you? And I said, no, I wasn't.
And for the people, Lydia, who was she was actually sitting across from Jay when he was shot, so
Right.
she was the best witness.
Of course, she was there.
Talk to me about how did you get involved in protecting Lydia or looking out for Lydia?
Oh, I was asked to, again, by AJ and Eric. You know, I went over in her house, introduced myself to her. She knew I was coming because they called her. And then, you know, we got to know each other. And she got to know who I was. I got to know who she was. She was a very nice person, you know, and then we hung out. My job was to basically make sure she got to the funeral safely, nothing happened to her, and we were able to possibly go to the DA's office and either testify or give testimony. However, that didn't work so well at first. There were just several problems. And like I said, with the DA, with the cops, detectives involved, with witnesses, and I'm not going to put everything on the detectives, because a lot of people think that, oh, the detectives didn't do a good job. It's not always that. It's sometimes you need help. You need cooperation from people.
Right. And some people could get better cooperation from versus others.
Yeah, you know what it is? You got to know how to talk to people and get people to trust you. That's a big thing. I remember I had a case where I had a female detective that was very well unliked, and she used to go in detective squads, you know, pushing her weight around, and a lot of guys resented her, and they told me because they knew me, and I was cool with them, and they were like, "Yo, we don't know who this fucking bitch is. Like, she's coming here telling us this and that," and I tried talking to her, but she was one you couldn't reason with, so she had to lie in her own bed, you know, as to say, like, let her do whatever. But the case eventually got solved, and it was done. But she kind of resented me, you know, because she felt that I was too close to the rappers. Like, and I knew Little C's in the case. I saw Little C's maybe about a month ago too, and he's always a cool guy. Me and him are always good with each other. Listen, do people make mistakes? Yes, we all do. But it's what you do with the mistakes you make and how you correct them. And, you know, C's, you know, he's come along. He doesn't want those problems anymore. He's older. These guys are going around trying to make music, trying to get back to where they were, try to survive, you know, and that's really the name of the game. Not every rap person is a bad guy. Listen, have we had problems with a lot of rappers? Of course. They're young, they're involved in this industry. Sometimes they do a lot of stuff that they shouldn't be doing. Sometimes there's a lot of criminal acts, but, you know, you adhere to being a good citizen and doing what you do, or if you go the wrong way, you're going to go to jail or be locked up.
Right. Now, talk to me about the phone call that Lydia got.
Well, she got a phone call from Big D, Darren Jordan, and, you know, he made a phone call to her. The words actually were like, "Oh, I didn't know that was you," and she started trembling. She got scared because she knew, basically, that that's Carl Jordan's father, one of the defendants in this case. So it's only reasonable for her to believe that she would be afraid, because everybody knew him. He was sort of an intimidating figure in the community that people knew, and he had ties to a lot of the street guys and things like that. So, I mean, that was that back then, you know?
Do you recall what Big D told her over the phone?
No, basically it wasn't even a long conversation. It was like, "Oh, I didn't know that was you, how you doing, blah, 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 blah." And then she hung up and she started shaking and stuff like that. So I already knew what it was.
Right. I can't even recall exactly what she had said. I'll have to look through my notes. But anyway, what Big D had said, she had took it almost as if it was a threat. Because
Yeah.
for the people, I'm sorry to stop you, but for the people watching, she has stated she had never received a call from Big D. So she took it. That's what.
Well, that's true. That's true. She never received a call from him before, from what she told me the day I was there with her. Why would he be calling her?
Right.
So you're right. Could she have perceived it as a threat? Of course.
Right. And from there, she would accompany her when she do her shopping.
Talking about me?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, going shopping with her, making sure she was safe. Making sure nothing happened to her. That was Eric's concern. That was AJ's concern. And that was everybody's concern, basically. But listen, for the public and for the people that don't know, she took a lot of grief as well. There were people writing on social media calling her a bitch. you know, you're this, you were the cause of it, you did this, you may have something to do with it. They accused her as well. So she took a lot of heat over that. And people have to understand that, you know, from the death threats that she got and the name calling and the everything people came at her with, you have to put yourself in her shoes and say, wow, this woman took a lot, you know, just because she was in the studio that day. And apparently the guys came in and people felt that she let them in and she wasn't telling and she wasn't going to go to court. And this was Jam Master Jay. He wasn't like everybody else. And that played an effect on her as well. That's something the court didn't really, I hope that it might have been brought out in the courts with the jurors, but I don't know if it was, that she took a lot of flack over that. And that was one of the reasons why she was very reluctant to cooperate as well.
Sadly, she did, and I was there in court to hear her testimony, and she was very emotional. You could tell she was scared because, mind you, she was sitting right across from Jay when he was shot.
Right.
So you could just imagine, for the people, you could just imagine that traumatic experience. Now, when you were looking out for her, nobody, I'm going to ask you the same thing that the lawyers asked you on the stand. Nobody paid you for this? You weren't doing it?
No, I never got paid at all. As a matter of fact, I paid Lydia. She owes me $500. No, I paid her to move, to relocate, to help relocate, because the DA's office apparently didn't give her what she wanted. And I felt bad for her. And she had no money. She had nothing. She wasn't working. So I took a little bit of money I had, and I gave it to her to just try to help her somewhat. You know, that's just the kind of guy I am.
Right. And for the viewers, she worked for Jam Master Jay. As you could tell, like, if her boss is killed,
that was it. She was unemployed.
Exactly. So I gotta commend you. You looked out for her, and you know, for just the kindness of your heart.
Yeah, you know, I mean, she's not the first person. I've had many cases where, you know, I've dealt with bad guys, you know, killers, all kinds of bad people, where sometimes you have to. I see certain cases the way they are. Like, for example, when you had domestic violence cases or you had other cases, you know, you're a little bit different as you approach them, because you feel that, well, this person was an innocent bystander. Why did he have to get killed? So you can't feel sorry for certain people like that. But in certain cases, you know, with certain people, I remember I had a woman, a grandmother in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, when I was working there, and her son talked rudely to us one day. He was like real disrespectful. And my partner and I were in the car one day, and he was out with his boys. He was showing off. And so we picked him up, we put him in the back of our car and took him for a ride. And then we said, listen, man, we buy your grandmother milk, we give her bread and everything, and you talk to us like this out in the street, because you could have incited a riot with all these dudes in the street, and you would have got all these dudes locked up or people hurt. And the next thing you know, he's like, yo, man, I just can't let you guys roll up on me and then say what's up to me in front of my crew. I get it, but you got to be a little respectful. A smart guy's respectful. Right. So we sent him back to his crowd, and he was like, you know, looking at us like this, because the crowd was looking at him like, yo, why those detectives release him real quick? You know, they was like a little curious of him. But he told him, I said, I put him out the car. I said, listen, don't ever talk rudely to us again. They probably thought we beat him up and roughed him up a little bit. Yeah. You know, they slacked him around a little bit and sent him back to the streets.
Give him some ketchup.
Nah, we didn't do that to him. We knew his grandmother and everybody, you know. When you worked in those neighborhoods, you get to know people. Right. You get to know the hood. You know where the bad guys go. You know who's running the block, who's the kingpin, who's the gun guy, who's the drug dealer. You know everything when you work in certain communities. You know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't always step to everybody, but sometimes you got to use things to your advantage. Mm-hmm. Like I had a guy kill a guy in a crack spot, right? He kills the guy. He stabbed him over a crack deal. Mm-hmm. So he was a worker. He was the guy who killed the guy in the crack spot was another guy who they knew who was a worker. So the boss who ran the crack spot, I told him, yo, Parker, man, why you harassing me? You coming to all my places? I said, look, I'm looking for somebody that might be hiding out in one of your places. And he was like, nah, man, he ain't hiding out here. I said, how do I know that? I said, the best thing you could do is probably turn him in. And then I'll stop looking into your places for him. Sure enough, this guy ran into the precinct, man, scared. Parker, I heard you looking for me. You know, because the boss threatened him. They beat his ass and told him to get into the precinct because he wasn't supposed to go and kill some guy over at the crack spot because he brought a lot of heat to that area. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you see it. People see it on TV. You know how there was informants and snitches and people and things like that. So, you know, you got to know how to deal with certain people and how to deal with certain cases. So
Right.
it is what it is.